Yes. So today we're going to take a deep dive into using on-chain and off-chain analytics and tell you a little bit about DeFi trends, since we are already in beta and we have a bunch of beta testers, and we'd love for you all to try what we do. And essentially what we do at DeFi Trends is a simplified Bloomberg terminal for retail investors to make better investment decisions using data, so actionable insights and quality information all in one place. We bring both sides of on-chain, so the network health, and we also do everything off-chain, so social sentiment, scraping the web, so you are understanding what's happening at all times. So yeah, today's agenda is using data to make better investment decisions, different types of data, understanding social sentiment, and taking a deep dive into on-chain indicators that we provide. Yeah, so let's look at using data to make investment decisions and the different types. So what are the risks of not making a data-backed investment decision? First, you guys all know we get information from the web or our friends, and we don't really make data-backed investment decisions. Everyone's like, oh, my friend told me to invest in this. And we believe that you shouldn't trust influencers, and you should just start trusting the data. You're going to be misinformed. And if you start actually using data, you'll understand that there's transparency, and data does not lie. It's abundant, and sometimes, we believe not everyone's a data scientist or a finance analyst, but if we simplify it, you can definitely understand that it's actionable. And VCs, institutional investors, have been using these tools for as long as the old ages, and we believe that everyone should have this opportunity to know what's going on at all times. So we believe, why shouldn't you use these tools if they're simplified?
Exactly. And just to add on to that, another opportunity cost of not using data is the classic buy high, sell low. So by using data, by understanding what's happening on chain, what are people talking about, you're able to uncover those opportunities that might not be visible without digging really into the details.
Yeah, so what essentially our platform helps you do is spot new investment opportunities that we uncover using our algorithm. It allows you to do an automated due diligence. Essentially what we do in our mind to do due diligence, we automate that process for you. You can compare projects, coins to one another, and essentially find alpha in the market. Yeah, so let's look at different types of data. The first one we're going to talk about is, three things that we're going to talk about today are social sentiment, technical indicators, and on-chain. And the first one we'll start with is social sentiment. Who's heard of social sentiment here? Okay, cool. We were going to do a little quiz.
All right, so I know you all, let's give a brief overview, and then we'll have a really fun game to involve all of you. We'll surprise you. But essentially, the sentiment analysis really gives you an indication of what people are talking about, what they're feeling about certain market directions. When you look at technical indicators such as the fear and greed index, that is something that's already happened. So that's not a leading, but a lagging indicator. So looking at the velocity of change in price, for instance, how aggressive is the market selling or the market buying? And then lastly, on-chain, there's multiple indicators, but for example, one of the ones that helps you determine market sentiment is profit and loss realization potential. So how many coins are currently sitting in people's addresses in profit versus in loss, and what is the potential for people realizing that profit and loss and the following price impact. So those are just a few examples, but we can dig even deeper. And in investing, we often think about analysis in terms of fundamental analysis, technicals, and sentiment is kind of the cherry on top. But last but not least, it's still very impactful. And so you can look at, if you're analyzing a protocol, for example, what is the protocol interactions, how many new addresses are there, what's the transaction count, and then off-chain analytics supplement that by looking at community engagement, which can be really crucial for certain types of projects, or even looking at GitHub activity, which is one thing that we're able to scrape and see, especially for NFT projects, how active are the developers really.
And I do want to make a little point. So when you personally would be doing due diligence, sometimes you forget to do one of them, but GitHub is a really good indicator, how many contributors are there, how many comments are there. So I think it's a very, very important aspect to consider. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, of course. And we'll go into more of the other analytics as well, such as understanding long-term versus short-term holdings, TVL, etc., tracking well addresses, as well as exchange flows, which can be an indicator if a lot of people are moving assets onto centralized exchanges as an off-ramp. That's usually a bearish signal. So I think everyone's ready for the fun part, talking about sentiment analytics. So if you could all take out your phones and scan this QR code, or if you don't want to do that, you can click slido.com and slide.do and type in the code 701842, and we'll do a little experiment here, although...
Yeah, we're going to be collecting some data, like we always do.
All right, so I'm going to launch the first question. So Slido allows us to basically, all of us participate without all of us having to talk, which is difficult in a room with 60 people. All right. Is everyone seeing the question, what is your sentiment towards AVAX today?
So yeah, this is...
Let's see.
It's not a random sample, by the way. This is what data scientists view. They're like, okay, we have to get a random sample of the population, and I want to, okay.
Very unsurprising results.
I would have assumed that everyone would be strongly bullish, but I guess it's just bullish. Okay, so we wanted to get the sentiment in the room and explain why it's so important to know social sentiment. So with the transition from old survey data into the new big data era, we now know people's sentiment at all times. And sentiment is a very important indicator to know in real time what people feel. And imagine, we have one little finger to scroll, but if you could access everyone's information in the market, in one place, how much information you could have. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're scraping every modem of information that you could possibly imagine, even TikTok, which is kind of strange, but true because a lot of people post their opinions on there. So the new era is we can understand what essentially everyone is saying in a random sample to get the feel of the market. And I'll give you a little down low information. I've done studies on this, and the lag, so once you're exposed to any kind of marketing push or people's positive sentiment online on Twitter, you have a 2-week lag of when we see the effect on the blockchain or effect on the price. So in 2 weeks you are affected by what you see online. Yeah.
Exactly, and another important thing is that different types of coins, different types of tokens are also more or less susceptible to sentiment driving the price.
Yeah, one more important thing. So NFTs, interestingly enough, in a study done, it has the shortest lag. So NFTs, when we see it online, you are more affected by, sentiment, and we see a shorter lag compared to cryptocurrencies. Interesting study fact. So these are all of our inputs that we use. We do not have TikTok data because that's the newest input that we just added, but we analyze Twitter data, we look at news data, we look at searches, we look at Reddit data, and YouTube data. We have just started to scrape Discord and Telegram, so there's nothing that passes our information outlet. After we import all of our data, we run it through our own made sentiment functions, so we can see pop culture slang, which old, like Vader, I don't know if anyone knows this library called Vader. Ah, cool, someone knows social sentiment. Awesome, so there's like pre-made packages that look at social sentiment, and what we do is we add on to make our own personal packages which detect even more crypto slang. So if there's slang that I don't know, maybe I should crowdsource some slang words. But
That should be a new Slido.
oh yes, what are some slang that we need to add? So we look at these slang to see if there's a positive or negative sentiment, to understand holistically, all automated. And now we're going to show you how it essentially looks on our platform. Yeah, this is our third iteration of our UI. So we are known for having more simple UI when it comes to analytics. We wanted to make the process super actionable, digestible for an everyday user. Our audience is towards non-data scientists, non-analysts, non-finance analysts that are just getting in. So you can overlay multiple indicators on top of each other. And of course, they're normalized for the data scientists in the room. Everything is made, but we can see our social sentiment indicator being a leading indicator for price. Yeah. So now we're going to dive into some on-chain metrics that we've provided.
All right, everyone get their phones out again?
Oh yeah, so yeah, I'll just give a brief little intro to it. So why is on-chain important? It essentially illuminates the investor behavior on what's happening on the network, and general also sentiment on what's happening on the network. And as everyone knows, blockchain data for me as a data scientist is my favorite kind of data because it's unbiased, it's unalterable. That's what you would possibly dream of having. So we're one of my favorites, but yeah.
All right, it's the same link. So I just launched the second question, which is going to give us a nice little word map. So for any of you who already use OnChain Analytics, what are your favorite indicators to track macro market trends? So we're going to be diving into both macro and analyzing individual coins. All right, we have 0 votes. 2 votes. WAGMI, Wells movement, okay. Gas used, in and out of the money. TVL. Oh, WAGMI. All right.
It's very important.
Amount of Bitcoin on exchanges, yes. Open interest. Number of avalanches in the Alps. All right, we've got some nature lovers here.
Yes, very important indicator.
Volume, all right, this is getting bigger and bigger, but transfer volume. Okay, we'll give it 10 more seconds. Get your votes in, everybody.
It's a great way of crowdsourcing indicators too. Yeah. Like, oh, what have you? We're collecting data. Thank you for being more guinea pigs. You know.
Okay, taxons per second. Wonderful.
Total value locked is essentially, what we have.
So the winners are volume and TVL, closely tailed by Wells movement.
Oh, how did you do this? Anyway.
I didn't do this.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. This is great. Okay, and now let's go to the next question, and sadly our last question. I also want to point out that you can also submit questions for us on Slido. So if you go to the Q&A tab. So the last question that we'll do together is, which on-chain analytics do you use to analyze individual coins? So here the distinction is, one of them shows you, okay, how is the market going in general, or what are the overall trends of a specific coin or protocol or token even. And here you're looking at more granular, maybe short-term investing. Unique holders, RPC, Genie, TVL again.
Yes.
Yes.
So luckily we have all of the indicators that you have provided, because it's not our first rodeo. We've collected a lot, but it's good to know. And yeah.
Exactly. So something to keep in mind, just as a background, when looking at OnChain Analytics, there's different ways that different blockchains account for tokens moving across the blockchain. So the two methods, and I'm not going to dive too much into it, that are most prominent are account-based accounting methods and unspent transaction output methods. So just generally what that means is that in one of the scenarios, tokens are tracked based on the wallet they're in, based on the account they're in, so like addresses, and the other one is based on each transaction. So every time you send a transaction, that basically sets those coins to 0. So if I send you a transaction today, the transaction's cost basis, so at what price it was bought or sold, will be today for the coins and not for the addresses holding the coins. So Avalanche, for example, uses the UTXO model. So what are some of the indicators that we can derive from that? So we just talked about a lot of these. Don't worry, we'll dive into TVL, your favorite metric. But one of the things to look at when you're looking at, okay, is the market overvalued or undervalued, is comparing the market cap versus the realized value of all coins. What does this mean? Market cap basically is just circulating supply, so all the tokens that are out there multiplied by the current market price. But what are some of the fallacies here? If you look at Bitcoin, for example, that has been around for over 10 years, you can have so many coins that are lost that are now valued in the market cap, but no one has actual access to. So when you look at realized value and using the UTXO method, you can say you're basically multiplying the circulating supply based times their cost basis. So at what price was each of these Bitcoins or AVAX coins bought? And that tells you a more accurate view of the coins that are actively in circulation. Other big indicators that allow you to realize, okay, what is the general health of this coin? If you're looking at a protocol, for example, you can see new addresses added, addresses with a certain amount of balances, active addresses, long-term versus short-term holders. So, for example, coins that have been held for longer than 155 days or less. And also, last but not least, already mentioned, the exchange in and outflows. When you want to go a little bit more granular, and a lot of you also said this, we can look at whales. So in the short term, whales can really influence the way that the market moves. So by tagging addresses that hold a certain amount of the coin that you're interested in, and
multiple blockchains.
Exactly, and following their behavior, that's often an indicator to what will happen in the overall market. So this is just an example of looking at on-chain transactions for Avalanche in this case. So here you can see different trends when on-chain transaction has spiked and when it's lower, compare it to the price and evaluate therefore what essentially is happening, how are people feeling, are people actively buying, how aggressive is the market behavior, or is it an accumulation phase, for instance. So let's talk a little bit about TVL, because TVL, for those that don't know, stands for total value locked. So it's the amount of coin or the value of it that is in the Defy protocol locked for a certain amount of time. An interesting thing is when you compare market cap to TVL, you can essentially deduce from that, amongst other indicators, whether coin is over or undervalued at the moment. And so, for example, for Avalanche, I checked this morning, the market cap to TVL ratio is around 2.5, 2.6, with an average market cap to TVL ratio of 3, for example. For Ethereum, obviously that's not always stable either. You can see, okay, so the value that is locked away in comparison to the total value out there is relatively high. So you could infer, okay, this coin might be undervalued. Because theoretically, the TVL, the value that is locked away, is unlikely to be spent or sold off in the near future. And this is where it's also useful to compare short-term and long-term holders and the amount that they hold for each of the coins that you're looking at. So this is where we go into comparing different protocols, for instance, and seeing which ones are taking off, which ones are a good long-term investment, etc.
And yeah, so this is our dashboard, we also wanted to introduce it to you so we can also get feedback in the future. But essentially, what we're trying to do is simplify the process. While Elena gave us an elaborate explanation, we also created actually indicators to show how well the network is doing in our own way. And we created this index called the DeFi Trends Index, which is giving a holistic overall health of a particular coin on multiple parameters. So it's just like a quick glance. You'll understand how it's doing. So it's an automated due diligence algorithm, if we have to say it as so. And our platform is live for beta testers, and we'd love to take you on a whirl on it. But essentially what you can see is the global metrics. You can go dive deeper into the blockchains that we're analyzing at the moment, which is Avalanche, Near, Polygon, and Celo. Those are the first. We're going to step into Algorand, which is a little more complicated in our phase 2. So that should be coming up as well. Anything to add?
Yes, so let's use the last few minutes to answer some of the questions that have come into the Slido. So I'm just going to skip over when Lambo, when Moon, and when Sun. Oh. Go straight to, okay, one question here that has an upvote. How do you clean social media data from everyone just shilling their own tokens?
This is a good question. So our data cleaning process, well, I'm not going to get too deep in it, but I will give you a little overview. Essentially, there is a lot of bots, as you know, but we also ran a lot of studies, and we found that people are still susceptible to being influenced by the bots, and it still affects your purchasing behavior in the same way. So we have two methods. We have one method where we clean for bots and shilling, not personal shilling from influencers, because that still affects people's behavior, but just copy and paste shilling. So we have the clean version, and then we have the shilled version, and then we normalize it because that showed the most correlation to actual real data. So we have two versions. But to be honest, sometimes shilling actually works for more mainstream retail investors because they are essentially influenced by that marketing measure and affects their behavior. And as you know, I don't know if you guys know, if you have a conversation, everyone's like, oh yeah, Dogecoin. And I'm like, yes. So you know that they've been affected. They've been pilled with Dogecoin.
They've been infected, maybe.
They've been infected by mainstream crypto.
All right, so some other questions that we have here, because we are running short of time. Do you have APIs? Yes, we do have APIs for all of our data or some of it. You can go on our website on the Enterprise tab, or just come talk to us and we'll tell you all about how we can work with you if you want to.
Yeah, and I'll just give a point. So we originally started as a B2B API provider, so that's how we did it. We gave it to institutional investors, hedge funds, exchanges that need, more granular data for their users. So, right now exchanges are popping up left and right. What are their differentiator? But if you give them super detailed analytics, they're going to attract more users. So that's what we did. And then we started with our consumer-facing dashboard. But if you already made a dashboard for yourself on Python, super basic dashboard, you can definitely plug it in.
There's 2 or 3 questions about how we compare to our competitors. So one of them is about Lunar Crush and Nansen.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, the TIE has absolutely the same indicators, except what they don't do. Well, they're known for aggregated news and social sentiment, and they don't have the on-chain indicators that we have, that I'm aware of at the moment, because I'm always up to date with what's going on. But they would be the closest competitor, but they don't have a consumer-facing dashboard. So their audience is only institutional investors, asset managers, hedge funds, OTC desks, and researchers. So that's their bread and butter. Whereas we started as a B2B platform, and we now diverged into more retail investors because our whole mission is to really, I hate to use the word empower because that's the most keyword in every startup, empower, but we would really like to empower people to make data-backed investment decisions, because I see people are very influenced by just their friends and their fellow shiller influencers, and we want to inform everyone. So our values are more individual oriented while we still have our B2B clients. So that's a big differentiator. Also with the TIE, and I'll say Nansen and Lunar Crush, is that we specifically are towards an audience that is new to crypto, so they can actually take action from these indicators where it's not just complicated. And I don't know, how many people here have used Nansen before? Yes, okay, so we've had some Nansen users. A lot of our user research found that it was too complicated for them to use, and we get the data from all the same source. It's not like we're making data up on the blockchain. We're all querying and running nodes and then having a SQL database on top of it. We're getting it all from the same place, but our advantage is that we're simplifying and we're taking time to add another layer to the stack of where the data is actually actionable, and they're indicators, and we have color streams to understand where they're doing. Of course, we do have more complicated data, but we're trying to understand how an everyday user could take action from the data and not have to graph everything themselves and sit in a black room and connect dots. So that's our differentiator. Lunar Crush just does social sentiment. We do social sentiment as well. They are looking at more granular, like influencers, what are they shilling? We are getting into that data right now, but at this point, the same similarities would be that we aggregate news. We do NLP tagging, so we use topic modeling to see what the news is about without reading it. So you'll just get a summarized labeling. So you could, you Google, I don't know, announcements, and you can see all of the latest announcements. Or if you're just looking particularly for a network, you can Google the network and then also add another label for announcements. So aggregated news terminal, and then social sentiment and different types of volume across all the social media on a particular coin. So similar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So two takeaways: simplified data and multiple types of data in the same platform that you can graph on one plane. I don't know I think we're a little bit over time. If it's quick to answer, we can answer. So, as a thank you for coming and giving us your precious attention, if you want to sign up for our upcoming airdrop, because we're launching on Avalanche, our DeFi token
on Avalanche
on
the
April
13th.
You can sign up here on the contact form. Just put AVAX airdrop or just DeFi airdrop, and we'll add you to the list. You can also sign up there for our newsletters to up to date with everything, as well as become a beta tester if you would like.
Yeah.
So
we have 500 at the moment, and we have our lead UX designer here doing usability tests. So yeah, definitely find her if you want to look at our UI and.
We had 1,000 responses. Okay, well then, go to defytrends.io/contact and just put DeFi airdrop in the subject line there, and we'll make sure not to miss you.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
It's always fun when these things happen in the middle of a live presentation.
Thank you.